Gordon Chang is author of Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World. He joins us now to discuss North Korea's latest missile launch. Gordon, talk about the significance of this latest launch after what were supposed to be tough sanctions from the UN Security Council.
Yeah, this is more a political act than anything else, and essentially it's saying to the United States and others, you can't stop us. You know, they looked at what happened on Monday with Resolution 2375. They saw that the Chinese and the Russians watered it down. It probably is not going to hurt the North Koreans that much, despite what we have said. And so he is saying, look, you know, catch me if you can.
The UN Security Council is now having an emergency meeting today, and earlier this week they agreed to place those new sanctions on North Korea. You wonder what they'll do next. Here is what Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said earlier today after the launch. Listen.
We consider the best defense posed by a hostile regime in North Korea, the least free nation on the planet. We first look to our regional allies, South Korea and Japan. But North Korea is now a global threat, and it requires a global response from all nations.
Okay, you earlier said that you believe that those last sanctions were watered down. They were marketed as though they were the toughest sanctions yet. So what else can be done from a diplomatic sanctions perspective, in your view?
Well, they are the toughest set of sanctions, but they are inadequate at the same time. You know, the United States proposed, for instance, a total embargo on oil sales to North Korea. And indeed, that certainly would help. Also, we proposed getting the right under UN rules to board ships in order to stop North Korea's weapons trade. Because North Korea sells missiles to Iran, chemical weapons to Syria. The Iranians are supposed to pay the North Koreans somewhere in $2 to $3 billion a year. We can stop that.
And the Chinese and Russians didn't want those in the last set of sanctions? Yeah,
the Chinese and Russians did a lot of things that took them out of those sanctions, including asset freezes and all the rest of it, really did dilute the sanctions. You know, this time I think the United States needs to insist, really force China and Russia to show their hand, to veto it, for instance. You know, our ambassador, Nikki Haley, President Trump, really said, oh, it's great, we had 15-0. In other words, unanimity on all of these sanctions. That's not important. What's important is that the sanctions actually work. And what we need to do is, I think, put China and Russia in a very difficult place. Force them to come out in the public, because that's a way we can sort of move them in better directions.
President Trump is scheduled to meet with South Korea's President Moon Jae-in and Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe next week. What can we expect from that meeting? Well,
this is, you know, we saw that sound clip about Kim Jong-un trying to divide the U.S. from its allies. And yes, that is what Kim is trying to do, because he wants to absorb, take over South Korea. But what, in fact, he's done over the last couple months is drive these three countries together. Moon Jae-in, who is very much a pro-North Korean, is now talking about...
Well, in the sense that he wants to have talks with North Korea.
He wants to have talks with North Korea. He's a sunshine policy, putting a lot of money into the regime, sort of trying to build links. And this didn't work in the past. But the point is now, even Moon is saying, dialogue is impossible, what he mentioned within 24 hours ago. So really what we're seeing is Moon Jae-in being put in an impossible position, because he would like to appease the North Koreans, but the North Koreans don't want to be appeased by him, especially right now.
Japan's in a very difficult situation as well, given that their constitution prevents them from doing very much as far as a military response. And a lot of people are talking about whether they're going to change that in their constitution and start building more capability in their military. Secretary Tillerson said that China and Russia need to take, quote, direct action against the regime. What exactly do these nations need to do at this point, and what does that mean, direct action?
Well, direct action really means cutting off the flow of money, technology, all sorts of stuff to North Korea. And the Chinese have been supplying, for instance, those launchers for the mobile missiles, probably even the technology for North Korea's most advanced missiles, although we don't know that yet. But there's a lot of stuff there that they need to stop. This was a striking comment from Tillerson, who just last month talked about a pathway to dialogue, and now he's talking basically a threat, because what he's saying is, if the Chinese and Russians don't solve this through direct action, the United States will. And that, I think, is almost code for military force. So right now we're at a point where we're talking about things which, you know, really are striking, because the proposals that are now on the table, we weren't talking about a month ago, and God knows what we'll be talking a month from now in terms of trying to solve this.
And every expert we've spoken to has said there is no good military option. Gordon Chang, thank you.
Thank you.